back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here with my good friend, as always, Dan Wiseman. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm good today, mate. How are you?
I'm doing very good today, mate. And again, we've got another guest on the podcast. We're joined today by the one and only Lewis Kinsella. First of all, how are you doing, Lewis?
Yeah, not too bad. Coping with COVID. Just wishing I could go back to football now, to be fair.
Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it? So I guess we'll start on the topic with COVID. How have you kept yourself entertained so far during lockdown?
Just trying to take as much time as I can with my family. Obviously, walking the dog and trying to do things that I wouldn't be able to do when I'm working and playing. So trying to improve other parts of my game that I can, working by myself and keeping the family happy.
So have the club got you on a sort of fitness regime? How are they making sure that you stay in shape? What are you doing in terms of a footballing sense to try and make sure that as soon as you can go back, you're going to be ready to step straight back into that fold?
So I'm coming back from an injury. I got injured in February. I tore my medial ligament in my knee, unfortunately. So I'm at like the latter stage of that. I should be getting an injection next week just to basically tighten up the ligament a bit more to make sure that I don't have any future problems with it. So I've been in the gym doing a lot of strengthening and lots of cardio on the bike and hoping to get back on the pitch in the next 2 to 3 weeks to do some running.
Oh, nice.
I guess that's come at a good time then, really, with the lockdown, I guess, give you the time to make sure you've properly healed yourself before you can get back underway, really.
Yeah, I had a really good season, probably the best season I've had in senior football personally, like playing and playing really well as well, to be fair. But luckily, I only missed 2 to 3 games because of what happened. And yeah, I've been very lucky with it, really. I haven't missed a lot of games due to it. But for me, it's probably worked out the best thing that could have happened to me, really, with the season being null and void. But hopefully we can get back on that pitch soon and get going again.
Absolutely.
So I guess we'll start with where your career started then at Arsenal. You spent a long time there before you joined Villa as a young lad. How did that end at Arsenal? Was there a conversation and how did you come to deciding Villa being your destination?
So at 16, I found out I wasn't. Well, they said to me, "We'll give you a scholarship, but there's 2 left backs in the youth team and the reserve team that will play ahead of you because they're older than you. So we can give you one, but you're not going to guarantee to play. But we've put your name out to a lot of football clubs, and they'll be in contact with you in the next week." I had United, Liverpool, Celtic, Villa, Leicester, QPR, Brentford, and Southend all contact me. So quite a lot of teams. And in Chelsea. I went to Chelsea for 2 weeks, and they wanted to see me for 6 weeks, but it was too long. I wanted to get something sorted nearer time, so I played in a game for Aston Villa under 16s against Leicester, and I done really well. And because Leicester was one of the teams that are interested, they offered me a contract straight after the game, even though I was playing for Villa against Leicester. But I liked it at Villa. I liked the boys, and I got invited to go back up there for, I think it was 2 weeks in school holiday. So I went up there, spent every day like day release with the boys, and really enjoyed it. And I just knew straight away that's where I wanted to be. And I told my dad to ring all the other clubs and say that I'm going to sign for Aston Villa.
Well, it seems to be a really good decision because you played in quite a successful Villa youth side. You had the success in the NextGen tournament, which is one of the things that I was going to ask about. You won 2-0 in the second tournament that you played in. I think you missed the group stage through injury, didn't you?
Yeah. So I had a thigh strain through I think probably my first year. My second year, I picked up a lot of muscle injuries. I don't know whether it was from overuse or probably not really. I don't know, growing. It could be many things, but I missed the whole of the group stage. And luckily enough, I did enough in the first year, and probably in the games I did play in my second year to warrant a place straight in the team in the last 16. And we beat, I think it was Olympiacos or Ajax. I think, was it Ajax or Olympiacos?
Olympiacos, I think. Yeah, I think it was. Had Sporting Lisbon as well. I think.
So I think we played Olympiacos, then Ajax, then Sporting Lisbon, then Chelsea, or it might have been Ajax, Olympiacos, Sporting Lisbon, Chelsea. I can't remember which way it was, but I was lucky to play every minute of every game.
It looked. I was looking at some of the players, like the Sporting Lisbon side had, Nelson Semedo, Gonzalo Guedes. The Chelsea side that you beat in the final had like Christensen, Nathan Ake, Ruben Loftus-Cheek all played. So as a young player, it must be a fantastic opportunity to play in that tournament and play with those kind of players from all around the world, as in a development sense.
Yeah, no. Ever since I was 9 years old, I got exposed to European football, and we were playing against the best kids in Europe. I remember being 11 and playing against Real Madrid and Barcelona. I probably played against every top two teams in Europe, basically, in all the competitions that we've played to. I think at 11 years old, we went to 4 tournaments as an under 11, and we played against Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juve, Atletico, PSG, all in one season. So
Wow.
from there, yeah. So I've had a really good upbringing and in football, and that NextGen tournament, even the first year was really good.
Were there any players that you can remember playing against that stand out now that have obviously gone on to have the careers that they were expected to? Can you think of a particular game where a player that you were playing against like in one of those sides?
In the NextGen?
Yeah.
I remember playing against Victor Fischer at Ajax, and he obviously went on and done okay. And then is it Klassen? He went to is he one that went to Everton? He done well at Ajax. The Fenerbahce is hard because I haven't got any of the team sheets. I would like to know who out of all the teams we played against, who's where. I know you said the ones at Sporting. I remember having Sporting Lisbon. The semi-final was a lesson learned for me. I remember playing coming off the pitch thinking, Jesus.
I think that went to extra time. That looked quite a close game.
We just sort of had that luck, where you just seem to pick up results, and in the final we had the penalties, and it was just a crazy crazy experience. My mum and dad and all them drove all the way to Lake Como to come and watch. Take it in your stride. Like when you're at Arsenal, you get that confidence put in you, and that you know that you're one of the best players. And I had coaches telling me like you're literally one of the probably the top left back at your age in England, which is if you're at Arsenal at the time when you've got Vieira, the Invincibles. You're literally playing at the best academy probably in England, and then for me to go to Villa and them being one of the best academies for producing players, I think they produce one of the most amount of players that have gone on not just to play for Villa but to play in senior football is a great achievement for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm looking at the sides now that played in that Ajax side, and you've got some really big names. Yeah, Jairo Riedewald played, Kenny Tete, Ryan Gravenberch, some massive names. But as I said, the Villa side that you played in as well, obviously the likes of Grealish, Graham Burke, Jordan Lydon, Samir Carruthers, some good players in its own right. And so you said you felt quite at home playing with those boys.
But like from the first day I went there, the youth team and the reserve team were quite close knit because of Kev and Tone. Like there was no. You'd be training with the reserve team as soon as possible. Well, no matter how old you are, 15, 16, if you're good enough, you'd be up there. And then if you was having a bad spell, you'd be put back down, and then you work your way back up again. I think there was obviously a bit of a difference between the youth team, reserve team, and getting into that first team. But we had quite a good group, and Kev and Tony made sure that we were close knit.
What was Kevin McDonald like as a coach? Because I've met him a few times going to under 23s games. He comes across as a really nice man, and most people who have worked with him in terms of players always have great things to say. So I'd be interested to hear what he was like, sort of on the training ground.
I love Kev to bits. Like there was times where I've hated Kev, and not enjoyed his sessions one bit, but he does it for the right reasons. And after that session where you think, God, Kev, like that was so hard. You feel like a sense of achievement. He makes you feel good. He's one of the best managers I've ever worked with, and I know there's a lot of stuff gone about him, but he only wants to improve players. That's his only thing. He wanted to improve players. He wanted to get people into the first team. I think the modern generation now it's easy to find a scapegoat, and they try and get away from hard work. But Kev instilled an attitude with me and a lot of players that have pushed them on to like careers that you wouldn't have never thought they would have had.
Yeah. So it was Tim Sherwood, I think, that called you up to the first team squad for the first time. It was actually the quarter-final win against West Brom at Villa Park with that 2-0. I think you were on the bench in that game, but what a game to be involved in. I think, as a fan, I was at that game. It was probably one of my favourite games I've ever been to at Villa Park. It must have been amazing to have been involved in.
Yeah, it was crazy. I never thought that I wasn't really meant to be with the first team on Tim Sherwood's first training session. So I was just coming back from an ankle injury, and I wasn't quite fit enough to play for the reserves, but I was fit enough to train. So the youth team and the reserves had a small squad because there's a lot of players on loan. So they've gone and played in the game, and Tim needed an extra player to train with him. And I think it was Kev or Tony, one of them, said, send Kins up there, he'll train with you. And I trained, I'd done really well. And from that day on, I trained, I think, every day for 6 weeks with Tim. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was working harder, and players in my position were either getting sick or they were getting injured. And it was like, cool, at Newcastle, I could start. Like, it was getting that close. But and when I missed out, they put Matty Loughton, I think, at left back. But even in the FA Cup quarter final, it was just surreal. And like sitting on the bench and there wasn't an empty seat, and when all the fans ran on at the end, I remember this. I did an interview with Matt the other day, Kendrick, and I was saying, like, there used to be like Lucozade jelly babies, and because I never thought that I was ever going to be coming on, like, I just thought I'm just here to make the number. I've like piled like 6 or 7 bags of them into my pocket, and I'm sitting on the bench just piling in these jelly babies. Andy Byman and Jack's laughing, and then Matty Loughton went down with cramp. And Tim's turned round to me and said, this is like 60th minute. He said, Kins, go get warm. And I remember like going from warm, like running up and down, like clapping, like taking it all in, buzzing, to thinking I'm actually going to come on here and absolutely like being terrified. I nearly got cramp warming up on the side.
Yeah, the atmosphere of that game was crazy. I mean, as I said, definitely one of my favourite games. But Tim did the same. He called up Jack. He gave Jack his debut. Hepburn Murphy as well gave Rush his debut away at Sunderland. So it seemed in that sense, and obviously he's done it at Spurs as well. You know, he takes claim for Harry Kane. He seems everywhere he's gone. He seems to have a real emphasis on youth. So obviously, I know you mentioned K-Mac as one of the better managers, but what was Tim like to work under?
Tim was brilliant with me. I really got on well with him. He was like, obviously, he gave me an opportunity, and he put me in the limelight a bit for me. I still speak to him now. Like we've become like family friends through my missus is friends with his missus through basically like beauty eyelashes, because we're from the same sort of area. So my missus does his missus eyelashes and eyebrows and stuff like that. So
nice.
Sometimes I've been around his house and had a chat with him. But he was really, really good. He obviously like wanted to help the young players, and these sessions were good. But you could be eating lunch on your own, and he'd come and sit with you and have a chat and eat his lunch with you. Whereas previous managers wouldn't. Like, you could be on your own, and he could be on his own, and they've gone and sat on opposite tables, and you just think, why don't you come sit with me and have a chat? It's like a boundary. Whereas Tim, there was no boundary, but you respected him enough when he said something, you do it.
Well, yeah, he seemed to have that wider, because obviously it was coming out of the Lambert era. And Tim just seemed to inject a lot of soul, and obviously personality-wise, he sort of does that anyway. But he seemed like, just from a fan's perspective, seemed to inject a lot of life into the club. And obviously, we had that FA Cup run, got to Wembley, and everything like that. And it seemed to just put a really kind of positive light on Villa again after what was quite a dreary period under Paul Lambert, from a fan's perspective, anyway. Yeah,
I think it's disappointing that he did go, because I think he had a real connection with the fans, and he loves Villa now. I'm sure he still loves Villa as a massive.
Yeah, always talks about him.
Yeah, exactly. He always talks about. I remember going to watch QPR, and I watched Jack. I had a weekend off, and Jack got me some tickets for QPR Villa, and I remember Tim walking past the Villa end, and the Villa fans were going mad for him. And but yeah, he's a really good guy, and I hope he does like go back into manager. I know it's been a long time now, but anyone that gets hold of him will be successful, I reckon.
Do you have any sort of, I guess you kind of mentioned there with how approachable Tim was is there any Villa manager that maybe sticks out to you as being someone who you felt like you could never like go to or just have a chat with, like, because Tim just seemed like he's just a top bloke, really. I think he's more about the people first and then football second, maybe, I think, in and around the training ground like that.
I think Tim has got, if Tim wants to say something, he won't hold back. He will say, I know he says he'll come speak to you, but if he has something to say, he will say it. But I think Rémi Garde was probably when I knew that my time was over at Villa. I kind of went and trained with the first team once, and I went over and introduced myself. I said, like, I'm Lewis. I'm not a left back in the reserve team, blah, blah, blah. I trained, and then I did okay, but I didn't train with him for like another 2 weeks. And then when I went over to him, he come up to me and he's like, what's your name again? So he forgot me. So I then sort of thought, nah, I'm not ever going to be in the plans, and tried to look elsewhere, basically.
Is that how it goes
really
with the manager? Like you introduce yourself, and you know, you always imagine the managers coming over and wanting to know the players, and I guess that reflects poorly on Rémi Garde. I think it's well documented how poor he did at Villa.
Yeah, I think like if you've not been up there, I think it's a good thing to do as a player to go introduce yourself. It shows you're kind of not scared and you want to impress. But like Tim come over to us, and when I trained with the first team the first ever time, Gordon Cowans brought me up to Alex McLeish and introduced us together. So this is one of the young boys, and he said called Stillian and Gabby over, and he said, look after Kins, he's going to be training with you today. And them two were perfect with me, and like introduced me to the boys, and not made it any like tried to take away the fear and the nervousness, because it is nerve wracking for certain players, especially me. It was to train with some of them players who you looked up to for your whole career.
Yeah, I think the Rémi Garde era was really interesting because we made the appointment, and it seemed quite a good one at first. He'd had some success at Lyon, and obviously under Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, he was almost a prodigy in some sense, and apparently learned a lot of Arsene. And I was obviously during that relegation season quite happy to see Rémi come in at first. His track record looked good, but a lot of players, as Dan was saying, have since come out. Gabby Bonglahor especially has come out and been pretty vocal on how much he dislikes, and apparently the whole squad seemed to dislike Rémi Garde. So you don't see him along there. Like apparently rubbed off the wrong way on quite a lot of players, especially at senior level.
I wasn't really with him enough to kind of see it, but you kind of hear stories, and like he wouldn't. If you walked past him, there was no hello or good morning, or like he'd just put his head down and walk past you, and you just think like you're going to need some players like, out of our group to probably come and train with you. You're going to need like your Jacks, you're going to need your Daniel Johnsons, your Sammy Carruthers, Derek Williams. They're all players that we're going to end up playing for you, but he didn't, and that was the way it happened, and I think he kind of got what was coming for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Was there ever any players that perhaps you look at? I know you literally just mentioned Daniel Johnson there. He's certainly one that sticks out where you think probably deserved more of a crack at the whip at Villa. Because I think, you look at, you've got your Daniel Johnsons, your Callum Robinsons, maybe even Graham Burke. He was very prolific for the academy. Is there anyone you look at and you think you're surprised that they didn't make it maybe as far?
I think obviously Daniel Johnson and Callum Robinson are the two. I think Cal went out on loan and done really well for Preston, and he didn't quite get a fair crack at it at Villa. Daniel Johnson, definitely, he's one of probably the best players in the Championship last year, and he scored a lot of goals. And I think people kind of took him the wrong way, like because obviously he has dreadlocks, gold tooth, and he sort of just jogs around, and people can take him the wrong way, but he is one of the hardest working players, and his left foot's incredible, very, very good.
Always scores against the Villa as well.
Does he? Yeah. Jordan Graham's another one. I think he's been unfortunate, especially at Wolves now with his injury. I think if he had a really bad injury. He had an ACL and an LCL, which is to do both is quite. I think he was out for 16 months, and that's really affected him. And with Nuno playing a free at the back, it doesn't help him as well. He's an out-and-out winger. So hopefully with Jordan, I could see him if he can get a run of games and he's in his best position, then I can see him kicking back on into the Championship, if not into the Premier League. So
you mentioned obviously the Rémi Garde as sort of being the end. You knew your time at Villa was coming to an end. You had it seemed from what I've been doing online that you had quite a few clubs available to you. A couple of teams in the Football League that fell through, but you eventually settled on. It was Colchester, was it? That you went to, yeah. So the moves that fell through, how did that sort of happen, and how did you end up at Colchester? What was the decision there?
So basically, these two weren't. I went on trial at Swindon through Tim Sherwood and Seamus, and basically they had two left backs already, but they were playing 3-5-2, and Seamus was desperate for me to sign at Swindon, so he even tried to get me in as a left side centre half, which obviously I'm only 5'9", but he was desperate to get me in, and unfortunately nothing come of that. But that wasn't one of the clubs. So then I went on trial. I did a trial game with Northampton when Chris Wilder was there, when they just won the league, so we played against them. Chris Wilder really liked me, but then he got a move, that season to Sheffield. I think it was Sheffield after that. After he went from Northampton, he went to somewhere else. So their manager and their recruitment just completely changed. I then went to Luton on trial in pre-season because I was there previously, and my agent's best friend with the manager. So he got me in to try and a little trial / to keep fit for anything else if anything come up. But I basically had 2 clubs in League Two. I met both the managers. I went to one of the managers' house, and spoke to him, and it was too far away from me, and for what the money was offering, I wouldn't been able to afford to live, and it wasn't good money at all. It just wasn't financially right for me. Footballing wise, it probably would have been, but not financially. So I said to him no, and then I went and then I agreed to sign with the other club. And he said, yeah, no worries, blah, 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 blah. Week later, I rang him, like, can I sign? He said, just speaking to the chairman, waiting for things to get sorted, the paperwork. So I said, all right, no worries. He said, ring me back in a week. So I rang him back in a week, no answer. And then kept ringing him, nothing. And then I've gone on BBC Sport transfers and seen he signed a left back. So I was like,
okay, no way.
Yeah. So I spoke to my agent and I was like, what's happened? And he said, he just basically he found someone who he prefers. And I said, yeah, but I've just turned down the other club. So now I have no clubs. And he said, yeah, I'm literally, I can't believe he's done it. Literally, I honestly was like,
that's terrible.
So luckily, I think if you're in a football league club, you get a severance pay. So you get an extra month. So you get, instead of your pay ending up on June, you get another payday in July, basically. So I was kind of lucky that I had that. And then I went on trial at Colchester because Matt Briggs, the left back, he was injured. He was out for I think he was out for 4 or 5 months with a hip injury. And I went on trial against Ipswich, done really well. And then the second game they wanted to see me on the Tuesday the Friday was against Crystal Palace. And I played against Townsend and I'd done really well. And they offered me a contract straight after that. And luckily I had something sorted for that season.
Nice.
I guess waiting that long, it must be awful, mustn't it? And I guess as well, dropping down, how different was the thing, just the little things like training, going into the kit room, stuff like that. How did that differ from your experience at maybe Villa and Arsenal?
Yeah, it's massive. Luckily I went on loan to certain clubs, but I still don't think, I think mentally now I'm probably more prepared than I was even when I was at Villa or when I went on loan or when I went to Colchester. I think for me, it's just, I've just been exposed to it a bit too late, kind of thing. The first team environment, I think I'm playing catch up. When I went to Colchester, I probably wasn't right in the right mental state. I wasn't ready to face the politics that goes on in football clubs in the lower league.
Yeah. Okay.
And with like managers and with like just certain things and stuff like that, and I wasn't ready. And then when I went to Aldershot and I played regularly, you kind of understand the lower league environment and the things that go on and stuff like that, and you just get used to it, and you think, what is going on? But you just got to get on with it, and hopefully that you do well enough to climb back up the leagues and get back to the levels of professionalism that there are in the Championship and the Premier League.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I think it was at Colchester, you then kind of mutually terminated your contract.
Yeah.
And as a fan, we see that all the time, but what does that actually entail? So, who initiates that? And obviously, you then settled on Aldershot, where, as you were saying, you seem to be playing your best football, so it seemed to work out better in the end. But that mutual termination process, how does that work out?
Mine was a bit different. Mine was a situation where I wasn't playing at all. I was playing the first season, got injured, and then they changed to a 3-5-2, and the person who played in my position, he scored like 11 goals in 28 games, and he was meant to be going to Ipswich, but he'd done his ACL in the last week of training. So I come back into the pre-season fit, thinking that I'll play every week and I'll be back in now, take my opportunity. Got probably the fittest I've ever been. I was winning all the running and stuff like that. And then unfortunately, the manager just wasn't having me. He didn't want to play me. Like, he'd bring me on second half. He's playing right wingers at left wing back, and I just knew. So then I'd ask if I could leave and go on loan, and he wouldn't let me. He said, "You're going to be involved. You're going to be involved." And then we played Villa in the Carabao Cup. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And we played Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and then it was the Tuesday against the Villa. So I was thinking, like, surely I'm not playing in these games. Surely he knows how much it's going to mean to me to play against Villa. considering I've just left there, like, and he put me on the bench, and I just thought, like, this is a game where you need to rest players. Like, realistically, are we going to get a result if we play a full strength side against a Premier League side, Championship side? No. So why didn't you let me play? Obviously, means much, and I didn't. And I think I played 25 minutes, half an hour, which was frustrating. And then it'd make me travel to Yeovil and say I'll be on the bench, and I wouldn't even play. I wouldn't even make the bench and stuff like that. And it got to a point where I was getting so frustrated, mentally down, driving every day, and in training, I made a block tackle on one of the players, and I caught him a bit. I didn't mean to. I got up and apologised straight away, and he started having to go back, and we ended up having a fight in training, and which happens a lot. And at the time, I spoke to my agent. There's a lot of other clubs that he knows that had the same sort of similar situation, and the club handled it a bit differently. But as I got handled, mine got handled a bit differently, and I asked to go on loan to Aldershot because I knew they were interested. And then when I went there, I done really well. I really enjoyed it. Like, the manager there, Gary Waddock, at the time was brilliant with me, and I probably was ready to quit football when I left Colchester at that time. I just couldn't deal with it mentally, and like, thinking, how have I gone from being on the bench in the FA Cup quarter final to not even being able to get into a League Two side. That's what probably was the hardest thing. But looking back at it now, I probably wasn't taking it as serious as I should be. And then I said to Colchester, can I make this a permanent in January? Can I go to Aldershot for the rest of the season? And they kind of said to me that, look, we want to keep in touch with you and see how you get on. Why don't you extend the loan? But I didn't want to stay there. I wasn't happy there, and I wanted to enjoy my football and go to a place where I was appreciated. So they agreed to basically terminate my contract and let me sign for
nice.
So
that's really interesting.
They looked after me in the long run, and they did help me. Colchester did. They could have easily said no and said, look, you're staying here, doing that. But they did help me in the long run.
Would you say perhaps not playing as much football when you were approaching like 19, 20, senior football, that is, like, had this effect on your career? Obviously, because you look at the game now, there's such an emphasis on getting 17-year-old wonder kids out and playing for you. You know, I think now more than ever, it's about finding that talent young and getting them in straight away. But obviously, it kind of happened a bit later for you, and you played more of your football sort of post 20. Would you say that?
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, obviously, but maybe they didn't think I was ready to go play. But looking at it now, I see players that come from Championship, Premier League clubs come to us, and I don't think they're anywhere near it. But like near our level. So I think sometimes, like, men's football is completely different. I know everyone says it's cliche that you have to go play games. Men's football is a different world. The National League is different. When you've got someone who's 15 stone striker who's coming to elbow you and hurt you and put you in the ground, it's completely different. And I know the thing is, when you get to the Champ and Premier League, that's 15 stone of muscle wanting to do the same thing instead of 15 stone of fat in our league. But it's literally, I feel like the Championship is just, it's a lot quicker and obviously a lot technically better version of what kind of goes on in this. There's a lot of direct teams as you move up the pyramid, and it's the teams that are quicker, stronger, that do sort of things like that. But I wish I probably went and got exposed to, even if it was National League North or South or whatever, men's football, whilst probably still playing at Villa. I think that's like a hybrid system. I think that would have been quite good if you could kind of still train with Villa every day and get better through the coaches, but play your games for a National League team or National League North and South. But like, for instance, Jack went to Notts County and he was incredible, and Cal went to Preston and he done really well. It's just, I think, finding your level and trying to get up that pyramid.
Well, yeah, I think well, you and I were speaking about this the other day, Dan, and sort of the importance, and I think we have realised it now, and Jack has been almost quite a trailblazer in that sense, and, you know, he's always the first to say that loan to Notts County was the making of him. It seems we leave at Villa, and we have left, you know, I'm going to use Hepburn Murphy as an example. He made his debut under Sherwood and came on, but this season has been his first loan. He's been on loan at Tranmere, and he's had a mixed bag. But that's been 5 years. He's just been playing kind of academy football Would you agree that kind of loan moves as early as you can, if you can get playing at a regular level, get used to the lower leagues, that benefits a player in the long run?
Yeah, definitely. I think I think it's a little bit of a reality check when you realise that there's good players in the National League. I remember one of the boys come on loan from Derby to us, and I think he thought he'd come and be in a walk in the park, and you come and you think, cool, it ain't as easy as what everyone makes it out to be. It's tough. It's like there's good footballers in the National League. That some players that played in the Premier League. We had George Elokobi with us last year. He played 50, 60 games for Wolves. He's played against Ronaldo. He's played against some of the best players in the world. And I think that a lot of players think that the lower leagues is not that. And that's probably what I had the problem with. And I thought, I'll go to League 2, easy. I'll play 40 games and then I'll get a move into the Championship or into League 1. It's not as simple as that. And I think it's a big reality check when you do go down to League 2, League 1 and the National League.
Yeah, I think just from the number of appearances that you've made, and you were speaking about it then, you can see how well you've settled in at Aldershot. Is the happiest time in your career?
I'd probably say, obviously, that 6-week spell when I was with the first team at Villa was probably the happiest I've been. And but now actually playing and affecting a game now and being one of the main players at Aldershot and really kicking on has probably been the best time. But it's weird because you play if you're playing it's good. If you're not playing, it's just frustrating. It's just that. I think if you're playing and you're doing well, you're happy. But now I'm probably trying to kick back on again. But with what's happened and with the COVID-19, it's the uncertainty and not knowing whether we will have a job and stuff like that. It does get hard, and it's just difficult time at the minute. And hopefully that I can get back on the pitch and I can kick on and get back up that pyramid.
It's kind of knocked everything for six, hasn't it, COVID? I believe null and void, is it, for your season?
Yeah, null and void. They're thinking about trying to do either. I think they've done points per game, and they're going to do playoffs, hopefully, because obviously with Bury going down, they need a team out of our league, and if they're going to relegate teams from League 2, then they've got to promote teams from us. But I think what they're waiting for is whether the National League can start again in September. If it can, then they will relegate, I think, whoever's at the bottom of League 2 with what's going on, Macclesfield or Stevenage, whoever, because of the money issues. But if they can't start until January, I don't think they'll relegate anyone in League 2, because obviously our season ain't going to start until January. So it is difficult, but I think a lot of clubs will go into administration if the government or the Premier League or the EFL doesn't support teams in this league, because a lot of clubs cope by week, month by month.
But yeah, I think that's totally different, isn't it? Between, you're looking at the Premier League clubs who are begging for money, but then there's not much of a thought of, your Aldershots, and your other National League clubs up and down the country.
Yeah, no. Like for instance, I need an injection just to sort my knee out, and it's £800, and like the club are umming and ahhing whether they can afford it because of what's going on, and they've got obviously other things, and it's frustrating because I need it, but they will do it. I know they will do it because they're going to have to, basically, and they want to help me, but it's just things like that. It's just waiting for, like, instead of at Villa, if I'd need an injection, it would be tomorrow you're on the train with the physio to London, or you're going with the physio tomorrow to London, you're getting your injection. Whereas now at Villa, Aldershot, it's like, I needed my injection 10 days ago. I asked, can I get an injection now? And I've only just been booked in for next week to get my injection, where it's like, you've got to be a lot more patient. You can't just spend willy-nilly, and you've got to be careful with your money, and it's like that with the whole club.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're still obviously, this is annoying and this is a setback, but still, obviously, in terms of a playing career, and 25, am I right in saying?
Yeah, 25.
Yeah. It's still a long way to go for you, personally. And so, you have aspirations. Obviously, you were saying, obviously, you've sort of settled in at Aldershot now. Is there aspirations to potentially try and work your way back up those leagues?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think if I could establish a career in League 1, that I would be happy now, and I could say at the end of my career I had a good career, and if I could get any further, then that would be a dream come true. But I'd like to think I could play in League 1 and establish myself there, and hopefully finish my career playing that like a steady level and not going up and down like a yo-yo. I think once I get to a level, and hopefully try and keep pushing on and keep setting myself targets to achieve more and more, and like I said, I'd love to be able to play in the Championship, and if not, then I'd be happy with a career in League One.
You've only got to look at Sheffield United really, and look at some of the players and how they've come up. Really, I think it's a good example that I think anything can happen. I don't think Ludstrom, players like that, even Ender Stevens, who was at Villa as well. No one would have thought when he left Villa that he'd end up back in the Premier League like the way he has. So anything can happen, really. Yeah,
exactly. Ender's a prime example. He's gone from League Two at Portsmouth to the Premier League in 4 seasons, I think it is, and. I remember 4 or 5 seasons. I remember playing against him when Colchester was at Portsmouth, and they were just about to get promoted from League Two to League One. And I remember speaking to him, and he just said, "Keep going" and stuff like that. And I still keep in contact with Cal, and he says about Ender and how well he's doing, and he just had a real confidence boost from it. And there's a lot of players, even like Jonathan Hogg, who's established a career in the Champ and the Premier League, who's kicked on. There's a lot of players that have gone down to come back up. Even Derek Williams, who's at League One, I think, with Bristol Rovers, and now he's a regular for Blackburn in the Championship. It's good to see.
Yeah, I think when you were at Villa, I was looking at the squad and stuff like that, and it was Ali Sissoko and Kieran Richardson. When you were sort of coming into the first team, they were the 2 left backs. I think I would probably prefer to see you in there, mate, over those 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to have played, and that's the one regret I kind of have, and just I didn't get 1 minute. I think I remember saying to Tim every time I see Tim, like, why don't you just put me on for 1 minute so I could say I played in the Premier League? And I said, why you put Rashan on instead of me, and like, I'd give him stick. But yeah, no, like there was a good group there. Obviously, you had Antonio Luna as well. Was it Antonio Luna?
Yeah,
the one with the beard, and then Jordan Amavi, and obviously, but Ali Sissoko does get a lot of stick, but he was so quick and strong. You could see why people did play him, because you just couldn't get past him. But on the ball, he wasn't the best. But as a defender, he was a very good defender. But I was lucky enough to be in and around a team that in the Premier League and play a couple of pre-season games, and got to play with the likes of Joe Cole, Alan Hutton, Jack, and Cal. It's like they're memories that will last with me forever.
What's it like playing with Joe Cole? Because obviously when he came at Villa, it's safe to say he was sort of in the twilight years, but a man as good as he was, I guess you can just become like a sponge and just sort of absorb that.
Yeah, I was really lucky. So my agent, Joe Cole, was the person who actually got me in contact with my agent.
Oh,
so
wow.
Joe Cole spoke to his agent, Dave Lee, at the time, or one of the guys who's friends. And Dave Lee contacted me, and I spoke to him, and basically Joe recommended me. And like from that day on, like, I got on really well with Joe, and he's just a real genuine nice guy. Like, you wouldn't see him turn up in Versace tracksuits like Charles Nzogbia and like Burberry stuff like that. But he'd just come in in his night tracksuit, night trainers. He'd work hard, and you could speak to him about anything, and he just like, I think you see that as well. The players that have kind of that have played at the highest level, including like Ron Vlaar and stuff like that, they sort of, and Senderos, they don't. There's no like arrogance with them. You can just have a genuine conversation with them. And if you have any worries or doubts, you can just go have a conversation with them, and they'll speak to you honestly and stuff like that. But in training, Joe Cole, you could just see his quality in the five-a-side, and he's just so strong. He's got this like weird strength. Like, you just can't tackle him. I don't know. It's weird. He doesn't look the strongest, but he just really, like, you hit his elbow and his knees, and you're just like, ouch. I can't explain it. He's just really ridiculously like strong.
So that Villa side, obviously you mentioned Joe Cole, Ron, Alan, a few of the other players. Even looking back at your Arsenal days, so before you became a senior, was there a player that particularly mentored you, or you felt that you learned a lot of, even those left backs that you mentioned? I mean, Amavi, I really liked him at left back. I thought he was a really good player. Was there any one player that you can single out in your youth days that you really looked up to and that helped you a lot?
I think at Arsenal there probably wasn't really many. I was just in my sort of age. I knew I was the only person who would play left back. The only real competition was myself. But when I got to Villa, I kind of looked at the first team, and Stephen Warnock was there, and I tried to basically like copy the way he played and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say there was anyone that really spoke to me. Phil Senderos was really good. If I had any questions, he'd answer him about positioning and decision making and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say I've really had a mentor. I think a mentor would help, and I've even looked into getting a mentor now, and someone that's previously played that would, like an all-round mentor that could coach me and go through games and clips of me, and have any, like, be on the phone whenever I needed him and stuff like that. I think it's good to have a mentor. If I was to have a child who was a footballer, or if I had any advice for any young kid, it would be to try and get a mentor, because I think they do really help.
Nice.
That's quite an underrated aspect of the game, isn't it? Having that person who can sort of put their arm around your shoulder and just give you that bit of advice, or literally just say, "Come on, keep your chin up." Especially, as you say, if you had no competition at Arsenal, there's no one to push you to be better, I guess.
No, exactly, and I think the only thing that you kind of pushes you is your family. Like, my dad would be like, "No, you were not on it today," and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of players, even in the first team, that handle young boys differently, and I think the ones that handle them best are the ones that are open to be able to speak to you, but that can give you a little rollicking when you need it. And I think that's the same as Kev Mack and Tony. Look, they were quite scary and stuff like that, but if you had to have a conversation about anything that you needed to, they'd be there on first hand. I remember when my auntie died, and I went to see Kev and asked if I could have a day off to go to her funeral and stuff like that. And he gave me 3 or 4 days off, and he said, "Don't worry about football, and just come back when you're ready." And for him to do that, it shows that he's not just a hard person on the outside. He does care. And I also was Matt. I see him in Barbados. I was literally last night. I couldn't believe it. I was in a shop buying some swimming goggles, and I've looked out the window and at the shop, and I said to her, "Is that Kev Mack?" That's not Kev Mack.
No way.
Gone out in Barbados, literally gone out. I was like, Kev's turned around and he's seen me, and he's come and cuddled me. I've never seen Kev cuddle anyone.
Of all the places to see someone, Barbados.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "What are you doing here?" But yeah, no, we just had, and then I literally had a half an hour conversation with him in the shop and just talking about everything and stuff like that. And I just kind of said, I wish I worked harder and stuff like that. And he said, "Let me tell you something, you worked as hard as you possibly could. Don't have any regrets. It's just wrong place, wrong time, and make sure that you work even harder now to get back to where you should be."
That must be nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that obviously you mentioned, you still have a good relationship with Tim, K-Mac. You seem to speak really affectionately about your Villa days, especially. What was it about the club that left such an impression on you?
It's just so professional. I think that's what kind of probably dampened me now from thinking I'm chasing that professionalism that we had there. And I made a lot of good friends, and I love the city, and I would love to move back one day to Birmingham. But the nicer bit, nowhere near, not near.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, well, don't worry.
But more, yeah, don't mind Aston, but nowhere near that other place. But yeah, no, I just loved it, and I loved the boys there. And boys still give me stick when I put a picture up of me in the Villa shirt saying "let it go" and stuff like that. But I think I'd probably say I'm a Aston Villa supporter now. And
good stuff, mate. Good stuff.
I supported Liverpool probably up until I was 16, and once I signed for Villa, I got a real sort of genuine connection with it, and I just loved it. I remember going to the games, and I still go to as many games as I can now. I went to the playoff final last year when we won, and went to the playoff semi-final against Sunderland or Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
The season before, and I tried to come. Jack always sorts me out with tickets, and I went to watch Cal against Tottenham this season for Sheffield. I tried to support them too as much as I can, because they've looked after me as well. And,
good stuff.
Yeah, no, I do love it there.
Is it any surprise that Jack's gone on to reach the levels that he has? Because as fans, we knew about Jack coming through from when he was very young, sort of playing in the soccer sevens and stuff like that. We saw what he was doing. Is it any surprise to you that he's gone on and it's hard to believe that he hasn't played for England? Really, he's of that caliber.
His time will come for England. I think Gareth and that they know that he's just on the boundaries of it, and he deserves an opportunity now. I think he's shown that he's grown up and matured a bit, and physically you should see you see him every week in, week out. He's a man
now, beast,
and,
isn't he?
Yeah, and he's putting in that work. I know he spends a lot of time at the training ground, a lot longer than a lot of the players, doing extra sessions and stuff like that. I think probably John Terry's helped him, and being like him, like I was saying earlier, a mentor. I think John Terry's been a great mentor for him, and really kicked him on, and he's just made that talent and that potential turn into a superstar at the minute. And hopefully he's worked hard over the break, and he can do as much as he can to keep Villa up once the season starts again.
Absolutely.
Was there many players, and you mentioned Charlton Zogby earlier, that you'd look at during training and think, he's not all that, or that there's just something not right about him that maybe we wouldn't expect?
I think with Charles was incredible. Like, Charles was an incredible footballer. He trained with us and he'd do things. I think, Jesus, how has he done that? Some of his gear that he'd bring in would be a different story. Like,
we've all seen that tracksuit. We've all seen that tracksuit.
I've seen him come like down to training in like Louis Vuitton gloves, hat, and scarf. And like, I've been training with the reserve team, and I'd be like, Charles, you can't wear that. Like, you can't wear that to training and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say. I remember Hellenius. He just, like, I think I've watched Gabby's interview with Matt Kendricks, and he said the same thing. Like, he was weird. He never really spoke to anyone, but he had the biggest foot I've ever seen. And he wouldn't really like train properly. Like, he'd just sort of mope about. Then all of a sudden we'd do this like free kicks or shooting, and he'd come running over to take the training. And he had that, like that David Luiz inside step.
Oh yeah.
He just seemed to have that like on Smash. I don't know how he used to. He literally just come over just to do that. I remember Tonev as well. Was it Alexander Tonev?
Oh God.
Yeah. So he used to play in some reserve games for us, and I used to just think like how's he playing for the first team? And
yeah, he was.
Especially when some of the players that were missing out ahead of him, there was a lot of players that were a lot better than him. But I wasn't really with the first team that much, so it's hard for me to judge. I wasn't training with them every day. There's a lot of good players in that group, and a lot of players that went on to do good things, and like Ron Vlaar, for instance. And I know Delph, he's probably not as liked as much, but he's gone on to have
absolutely.
Man City. And
I don't think anyone can begrudge what Delph has done.
Right. But to the boys, he was a winner and he's a leader, and he's gone on to do well.
I mean, it's evidence, doesn't it? He's won leagues, he's won League Cups, Delph. It certainly weren't the best way to go about his business, but it was the right thing for him personally. So I think you've got to look at it. I remember on Alexander Tonev, they did an open training session once at Villa Park, and I remember going with one of my mates and watching him, and he scored every free kick, every shot from outside the box. It seemed to hit the top corner. And I think he'd only played in the Norwich game. I think it was near the start of the season. We beat Norwich at Carrow Road. I think Libor Kozak scored.
Certainly did.
And he looked like a fantastic player, but then you just never saw anything from Tonev. And he was brought in on Petrov's recommendation, wasn't he?
I'm not sure. I just remember him being he had the biggest legs and calves, and he was ridiculously strong. Because obviously I played with Jack and Jordan and Callum. Them three for me were like better than him. So for me seeing Jack, I was thinking, how's Jack not getting in ahead of him? How's Jordan not getting in ahead of him? Like, because I've seen Jordan and Jack and Cal and knew their full potentials. And I remember saying to my agent, like, Jack is like different gear. He'll play for England one day. And like, he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I was just waiting for him to get his opportunity. And the same with Cal, but Cal never got his. But when Cal scored his hat-trick against Havant and Waterloo in the FA Cup, it was just like proving people wrong and proving me right. It was a good sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Tonev just looks, he's playing sort of relegation level football in Bulgaria at the moment, which says all you need to know, mate. I think this is why we've had some of the issues like with Rush and stuff. With Cal, Daniel Johnson's a great example whereby I think, especially in the Premier League, there's a tendency to go out and look for players in the transfer market instead of looking perhaps what you've got close to home. And have we given the boys in the lower ranks a chance, and instead of the likes of Tonev and Hellenius and stuff like that, then I think we may well have been better off.
Yeah, there was a lot of good players that were coming through at that time, and obviously if you look at the people that got, like Mark Albrighton, Mark Albrighton is an established Premier League player and a very, very good Premier League player. he's one that got released or didn't get offered a new contract, he would
won the league the next year, didn't he?
Exactly. I'd have him over Tonev every day of the week. And even Barry Bannon, look at him, how he's established himself at Sheffield Wednesday. He's one of technically the best player I've ever probably played with. His left foot's incredible. I think he gets a lot of criticism for his height and stuff like that, but technically on the ball and his vision and understanding of the game is very good. And I'm surprised that he hasn't kicked on, but maybe he is happy at Sheffield.
That's amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, Barry is a perfect example of a player that's sort of kind of crept into the fold in and out and stuff like that. But, as I said, I think, it's good to see that these lads, and like yourself in many ways, have now found consistency and just that they're able to, hopefully, when all this is over, kind of keep all that up. But just a matter of waiting out, I suppose, isn't it? Just like anything else.
Yeah, I think you kind of, like, for me, I'm out of that bubble now, and I'm really enjoying my football and playing every week. And I'm happy, and some people may say that I've not probably got to where I should be, or I am where I should be. But all that matters to me is that I'm enjoying my football. I'm working as hard as I can to improve myself and make sure that I give myself the best opportunity to say when I finish my career that I didn't leave any stone unturned, and I can say that I've worked my backside off and know that I couldn't do any more, and I'm happy where I've achieved.
Absolutely. Well, I said, still got a long way to go at your age yet. Yeah,
exactly. Like, who knows what could happen? You could have 2 back-to-back promotions. You could have 2 back-to-back moves like Endo, or I could have 2 back-to-back relegations, and I could be a plumber. So you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. But I know that I'm ready for any opportunity that I do get now, and mentally, physically, and hopefully that I can get my opportunity.
Well, hopefully, Lewis, when the season does get back underway, you can kick on and hopefully find yourself where you want to be, and hopefully you're back playing your best football. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Lewis. We do really appreciate it, mate. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, and you, boys. See you later.
So there we have it. That was Lewis Kinsella, formerly of Villa's Academy, on the podcast. Dan, really interesting guest.
Yeah, very much so. So I was just saying to you then, from the highs of Ian Taylor and Gary Thompson and everything that they achieved at the club, a guy like Lewis, who so desperately wanted to make it a Villa, wasn't quite given the opportunity that perhaps he deserved. But he's found a real home down at Aldershot, and it's a really interesting perspective to as I said, going from 2 legends who went down in folklore at this club to someone who desperately would have loved that but didn't quite get the shot.
No, it's great to have him on, and as you say, a totally different perspective, and it's nice to see how much affection he's got for the club as well. I think that's something that often perhaps gets overlooked or not documented very well.
Well, I mean, some players to turn down being a Liverpool fan to now become a Villa fan says all you need to know about how much he let at the moment to do that is pretty brave, I've got to say. Absolutely.
So it was, again, massive thank you for Lewis for coming on. Hopefully we'll have this out very soon for you guys so you can listen. But Dan, it's been a pleasure as always, mate. Any final words from yourself?
No. It looks like we're doing really well on the guest front. I've got to give props to you for that one, my man.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we should have some exciting ones coming up, but if not, I'm sure we'll manage to get some content out pretty soon.
Definitely, we've definitely got some things to say that don't involve guests. So we'll keep you guys updated. If you enjoyed this content, hit the like button. If you're listening on Spotify, do what you're doing there. So I think it's following on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening to this on. We appreciate the support. Subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. And we said if we eventually ever got there before the end of the season, we would be giving away a Samatta shirt. We've not forgotten. So whenever the season decides to end and whenever we reach that milestone, we'll cross that bridge. So make sure you subscribe if you want a Samatta shirt. Because who doesn't want a Samatta shirt? Absolutely. So up the Villa.
Chester's essential. The fulfilling this got potential. It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. He's the main leader of the gang now. Chester.